What do you think? What is the source code review? Actually, the source code review is the art of finding vulnerability in the application source code by using manual approach as well as by using the tools. So, actually, source code review is a process. If I talk about the in an organization or when we are going to do a source code review on the client end, so in that terms, the source code review is a process used to identify potential security vulnerabilities in the application source code or software source code. Okay, so what and why we are conducting source code review? What will the benefit of conducting source code review? Actually, the first benefit of the conducting source code review is detecting and addressing security flaw in the code level. Generally, security engineer or pen tester analyze the application source code, and after analysis they will finalize the report which kind of vulnerability are present in the source code. Okay, another benefit of the code review is the check for the coding standard and violation. Like any organization, if they have applications such like banking application or application having payment gateway interfaces, in that case they have to comply with the any of the standards like HIPAA or PCI DSS. Like PhonePe is compliant with PCI DSS. In that case, these standards, these compliance are always required. So secure code review also help you to get the standard compliances, and it will alert you if any of the standard violation is there. Another benefit of the source code review is the reduce the code complexity. Like if in many cases, like I have seen in the code, where at the time of analyzing of the code, the developer they assign the memory. Okay, they allocate the memory and they forgotten about the memory free the memory. So in that case, the code is little bit complexible, and it may result in the non-availability of the application. Another benefit of the code review is identify logic and artificial flaws. In the gray box assessment, it is very hardened to figure out the business logic flows and all. But in the at a code level, we can figure out business logic flows by the help of developer, and we can analyze the code. And if the code having any vulnerability, any flaws or any bugs, then we have to report to the developer. Another benefit of the secure code review is to find or analyze the code for hard-coded secret and hard-coded secret APIs keys or hard-coded algorithm keys, encryption keys. So we can find easily in that way. And another thing is reduce cost and effort of the security practice. It is a most valuable benefit of the code review, because if any team or any security engineer try to fix the finding at the application production level, at that time the security practice of security man hour it will be more. But in the case of secure code review, because the secure code review are the process or are the practice which is like follow at the time of development phase, so it is easier and it is less expensive as compared to fix the bug on the production level. So these are the benefit of the source code review, the conducting source code review. But what all the skill that you need to conduct a source code review? Some of the basic skill you need to have for conducting the source code review. The first skill that you need to have, understanding at least one object oriented framework. Like either you have knowledge about the J2EE framework or you have knowledge about the .NET framework, because these two frameworks are the basic of the all the frameworks in the application development. Okay, another thing is a structure of the modern application, like authentication mechanism, what all the authorization mechanism is there, what all the fields are there, what is the microservices, and how modern applications are being deployed on the cloud or on the DevOps. What is DevSecOps? So these modern application structure, you have to knowledge about that. Another thing is understanding application settings, like how application implement its settings. Another thing is familiar with development descriptor. It is very important in the code review. If you are going to conduct the code review, then you have knowledge about the development descriptor. in the case of J2EE, the development descriptor file name is web.xml, and in the case of .NET framework, it is a web.config file. Okay, in that file, the developer generally write all the like description of the development, this development, and all the important settings of the application are also placed in these files. Another thing is understanding of business logic and data flow. It means you have to knowledge about the how a business flow are being implemented in that application. And another thing is that how application treated with the user data, how it's handled the user data. So you have to knowledge about that. Another thing is familiar with OS. Another thing is SANS and CVEs. When so what is the best implementation of the code review in the cycle of the DevSecOps platform? Okay, so here the scenario when developer develop their code on their ID, and if they tested their functionality, if all the functionality is working fine, at the same time developer can trigger a automated scan. Okay, so once they completed the scan, once a tool completed the automated scan, you have the result. You have the list of results, list of findings. I think it might be 500, it might be 300 findings you have at that case. In that case, okay. So you have to analyze. You have to checking the finding. Either this finding is true positive, or this finding will be false positive. If this finding will be false positive, at the same time you have to close the finding as a not exploitable. If the finding is true positive, in that case you have to recommend to developer for the fixing the findings when to pass the finding. Okay, and once the code has been passed, once the code has been, the security vulnerabilities has been eliminated from the code, then only code should be posted to the code repository. Okay, so let's check what is the process flow of the code review. It is a general process followed by general approx 99% of the organization in current day in the market, because I have worked for 5 to 6 organizations for code review, and I have seen same process flow for all the organization. Okay, the process of the code review will be same as the gray box, but here the difference is the starting process is same, but the difference is start from there. Okay, so let's start from the process of the code review. Like first approach is the kick off the meeting. Means you have to collect the prerequisite pre-engagement of the application, like some information about the application walkthrough, some information about the application users, application authentication, authorization. So these are all the prerequisites that you have to receive from the client or from the organization. Once you have received the all the detail, then you have two options. One option is if the code line of code is less than 1000 line of code, then you can do a manual assessment. Means you can simply go through line by line, and you can simply analyze the code and doing the manual assessment. If the line of code is more than 1000 or more than 10,000, more than 1 lakh million line of code, in that case manual assessment will be not possible, not feasible. Okay, so in that case you have to scan with the any security assessment tool by using dynamic code security testing, and once the tool gives you the result, gives you a 500 or 600 or it might be 1000 number of findings, after that you have to do a manual assessment of this finding. Okay, by checking the code, by rectifying on the code, and you have to also collect the POC why this code is vulnerable for SQL injection. Okay, why this code is vulnerable for XSS attack, why this code having vulnerable for CSRF attack. So, and these findings are you can take a POC on the basis of OWASP or SANS guideline. Okay, once you have verified the finding, then you have to make a technical report. You have to write a technical report of only true positive. You have to close the finding for the false positive results. Okay, as the automation tool through bunches of thousands of false positive results, because they do not have clear structure, clear view of the structure of the application. If the app developer have defined a central input validation mechanism, in that case the automation tool cannot see that or cannot check that input validation. Okay, so in that case, it's generally report you the insufficient input validation or any injection attack vulnerabilities. So once you write it the technical report, then you have to discuss that report with your manager, with your development team. And after the fixing the vulnerability, after patch the vulnerability, you have to again do the same process by using tool, by using manual verification, by using secure verification. I mean the reassessment process. Okay, and once the vulnerability has been fixed, then you can provide a NOC or go ahead. And if the what if the vulnerability has been not fixed? In that case, you have to again follow the same process and supporting the developer. Okay, so let's check what all the prerequisite for the code review means. These prerequisite you have to ask from the client, or if you are working in an organization, then you have to ask from the organization. The first prerequisite and most important prerequisite is the access to the source code. I mean, if you have access to the code repository of the organization or client, then it's okay. If you do not have access, then you can ask them as a zip, the source code as a zip file or as a rar file. Okay, so you can directly upload that zip or that rar file to the automation tool, or either you can unzip that source code and you can do a manual assessment on that. Okay, the first prerequisite, always remember, first requisite is access to the source code. Another prerequisite is line of code. It is a very crucial prerequisite because it will help you to estimate total man hour, total hour need to complete that project. Okay, another thing is hardware requirement for license tool installation. Like it is a very crucial requirement also. If you are going to do the assessment on the client location, in some cases that I have faced, the client want to do not share their code, do not expose their application source code to another machine. In that case, you have to install all your tools, all your commercial tools or license on the client machine. So you need to first confirm with the client, either client are agree to do the assessment on your machine, or you have to do the assessment on the client machine. Okay, so if you are going to do the assessment on the client machine, if you are going to install the tools on the client machine, in that case you have to acknowledge to the client, so we need this kind of license and this kind of permission to install the tools and licenses. Okay, another important is application walkthrough. This is very important. This will help you at the time of the analyzing the true positive or false positive result. Like you have to know about authentication. Is the application also allow anonymous user, or all the user are authenticate only? Okay, another thing is how many kind of authorization is there, how many kind of user roles are there in the application. Okay, another thing is what kind of data validation is there. Another thing is how application or how developer are handle exception and error. Okay, and another thing is there any mechanism, anything when sensitive information are being written to the log, or are the crucial event of the application are being written to the log. So this information are you need to confirm with the developer. Okay, so let's check why we need to perform primarily scan with the tool. Okay, if you have millions of line of code, if you have 10 million line of code, it is not feasible for you to do the assessment of this kind of application, this kind of module scan by using the tools. It will streamline the process, streamline the code for you, and it will also calculate the line of code. It will also get some common known vulnerabilities. So let's check what all the tools are there in the market. There is a two kind of tool in the market. One is a free source, like free tools or open source tool, or another side is a commercial tool. I have used Checkmarx, AppScan, and Veracode also. These three tools are market leader nowadays. You can also use free tools. Its tools are also providing very good interface and very good results. So in the free tools, Code Wrapper is there, Yaska is there, Find Bug is there, and OWASP Origin project is also there. Okay, so let's check what all the key terminologies for the code review. There are four key terminologies for the code review, and every code reviewer have know about that. The first one is source, second one is sync, third one is tent, and fourth one is tent propagator. What will be the source? The source refers to location in the code where malicious input was introduced. I mean, where the input was inserted into the code. Let's take a scenario. Let's take an example. There is an application, and at that application portal, there is a login form. Okay, and we all know on the login form, login page, there is two option: username, two input field, username and password, and one button, submit. Okay, when you enter your malicious input in the username field, like generally user enter their username into username field, but what if a malicious user are taken or inserted a payload for a skill injection in the username field? Okay, so when they inserted username field, like any payload in the username field, so at that time that username field stored the value in any function or any method. At the time, this point is a source, means entry point of the code where the malicious input get introduced is a source. Another thing is sync. Sync is the location where that malicious input which is introduced at the source will be exploited at that place, will known as the sync. Okay, it means if you inserted a SQL injection payload in the username parameter in the username input field, and when that SQL injection payload will exploited at any function, means in any query, in SQL injection query, so that time that SQL injection query or that function or the method will be sync. And tent, the input, the malicious input is called tent, and tent propagator, the method or the element or the function which tracks the malicious input, and without any validation, without doing any validation, if they pass on this malicious input to another function, this will be tent propagator. So let's see the scenario, this terminology in the code level. Okay, you can simply see here, I have some HTML form with the username input, name input, and once the user give their name into that input field, that type is text, then once they submit, then it will trigger a script function name is display greeting. Once they trigger this display greeting, the name input, means the any malicious input are captured in that field, will be directly introduced here. Okay, so here the name is the source because the user input is firstly introduced in the code is here by using the document.getElement by id. Okay, and the tent will be the name input, whatever the if I insert here the script tag, okay, or if I inserted here my name Rajan. Okay, so Rajan will be a tent, and the name variable will directly concatenating to the this paragraph hello name. Okay, so and name variable transfer their tent, means the user input to the greeting variable. So this will be the tent propagator, and this greeting variable value, which whatever the value stored in the greeting variable is reflected on the page, reflected back on the page by using the inner HTML element, inner HTML property of the greeting element. So in that case, inner HTML property of the greeting element is the same. Okay, so let's analyze. Okay, let's understand what all the area of focus during the code review, means what all the thing that we have to remember while doing code review. Okay, so first thing is input validation and output encoding, because I think 80 or 82% of the vulnerability are eliminated by using proper input validation and output encoding. Okay, another thing is authentication and authorization. Another thing, cryptography. You have to focus about that cryptography algorithm. If application having any weak cryptography algorithm like SHA-1, 3DES, in that case you have to recommend to developer, so use any strong cryptography algorithm only with a sufficient cryptography encryption key. Okay. Another thing is session management, and another thing is threat modeling terminology. Okay, so let's analyze the below code for SQL injection attack. And I have like analyzed this code for SQL injection attack. I have explained to you, but it's your homework, a homework for you. So you have to like find here what variable or what function or what element will be the like source, what element is synced, where is the taint, and which function or which variable will be the taint propagator in that code. If you able to find this source, sync, taint propagator, so please write in the comment and I will reply on that on your comment. Okay, let's analyze the code. Here is a code. It is a simple front end code and one back end code. Okay, application is working on the same technologies, a front end and a back end. Okay, in front end we have used HTML, okay, and HTML forms, and we have used post method to send the user input from front end to back end. In the back end we have used PHP as a framework. Okay, so we have a HTML form, we have a HTML page, and once user have input their username into that HTML page, once they submit then button, then the post method, here is a post method, means the form is sent to the backend, and here is a code, it will check if the form is being submitted or not. Okay, so here if we enter our username like Rajan K. Okay, so once I have entered on the submit button, so it's check if the form is submitted. If form is submitted by using post method, then here it retrieve the username in the and store that username into the username variable. Okay, so the username which is like given into the input field on the front end side will be firstly introduced into the username field. Okay, and it will store into the username variable. Okay, and here you can see the code for the connecting with the database by using the database IP and username, password, and DB name. And here is the code for check the connection with the database. Once connection is okay, then here is the code to construct the query to use that username and access the username as well as the email ID of the username. Okay, email ID associated with the username. So here is a simple dynamic query. Select star from user where username equals to username. So you can see here whatever input is given by the user in the front end side is directly retrieved by the back end side, and whatever user input is retrieved and stored into the username variable is directly concatenating to the directly using into the SQL query. What if a attacker will like enter or insert SQL injection payload? Okay, so in that case what will happen, it will store in the username variable. Okay, and it will directly include in the query. Okay, and the result will be the breaking the query, and it will reflect SQL error. Okay, and once the attacker will like manipulate the query to close the error by inserting another payload to access the whole database, they can exploit SQL injection by using this query. Because here's two flows in the code. First flow, whatever user input retrieved by the backend code is not sanitized or it's not validated. It's not, there is no any input validation between them. And another thing is whatever the username are retrieved from the backend code, it directly concatenating to the username that is concatenating to the SQL query. So in that case, SQL server will not able to understand how many part of that query, how many part of that command is a SQL query and which of that part of the command is a user input. So in that case, SQL server will treat it this whole command as a SQL query. Once attacker will manipulate this query by using the SQL injection payload here. So in that case, they will like able to exploit SQL injection. Okay, and the query is executed here, and the result will be the SQL injection. Okay, so that's all for the now. And if you have any doubt, ping me in the comment section. I will happy to clear your doubt. I will happy to see your questions, your doubts.